What's
What's up,
up?
Turner?
How you doing?
Doing good, man.
All right. So to start the podcast, I basically have everybody talk about their background. So tell the viewers about yourself a little bit, and that they may not know.
Okay. All right, man. Just let me know when I'm good to go.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna start it right now. All right, we're good to go.
All right, Turner. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Oh, no problem. Um,
Uh,
so how did you get into basketball? Just start that out.
just how I started, man. As young as I can remember, basketball's always been my first love. I always tell my wife that she's the love of my life, but my first love was basketball. There's no doubt about it. Loved it since I can remember. And it's interesting because, the Last Dance documentary recently came out on Jordan and that last run with the Bulls. That was my whole childhood. Those 90s was like when I was, growing up. So I had the whole Jordan posters and I played, 24/7. And I played basketball all the time. I actually had the advantage of
You there? Got cut out. Hey, I
you
lost
there?
you there. Yep, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You're talking about growing up watching Jordan.
Yeah, so I grew up kind of, a big Jordan fan, and then also I had the advantage of, 5, 6 days a week I was in downtown Louisville playing at a place called Warner Street Baptist Church, and that's like where all the young talent grew up, so 5, 6 days a week I ended up playing against all these players. One of the people I used to play against with all the time, one-on-one as a kid, was Rajon Rondo. He was up there all the time, and a lot of other big name, very talented players that didn't necessarily make it to the NBA, but went on to play really well in high school and in college. So that's kind of how I first fell in love with the game.
What athletes did you look up to, like growing up? It could be like other than basketball, but just any sport.
Honestly, as I've gotten older, I've really, really admired Muhammad Ali, especially being from Louisville. I didn't understand his influence, and I didn't understand how much of an impact he made outside of this sport because he was before all of our generation. He was like my dad and my grandpa's generation. You know what I mean? But he's one I've always admired, and I just love the sport of boxing. And then I could just go down the line as far as basketball players. Obviously, I said Jordan, but Coach John Wooden has been a big influence on my life as well, as far as from the coach's side. And I love really just any player I can learn from. You know what I mean? So those are probably the main ones right now I can think of.
So, what made you want to pursue college basketball after going through high school?
I never really considered anything else. That was always my dream. It started out in the beginning was I wanted to be the point guard for University of Louisville. Because I grew up a U of L fan here in Louisville. But, in high school, playing at PRP, and I played with a lot of good players, and my best friend actually ended up signing and playing for U of L. I knew the next step for me was college basketball. I just wasn't sure, where that would end up, and I had a journey. I felt like I went to a bunch of different colleges before I ended up, playing at Asbury and finished out my career there. But I always considered that would be the next step after high school.
So, do you have a good amount of options, or talk to me about the professional basketball process that you had to go through?
That was really tough. Like I said, when I was with Coach Schaus and at Asbury, after my junior year, that was a year that I was all conference and all American. So I kind of was on the radar right there, but it never really crossed my mind to play pro basketball. Like I said, my objective when I went to Asbury, not to go real deep into that whole story, but I had took a couple years off. I was married. I was in a different place in my life when I came to Asbury. So I was mainly thinking about getting my degree so I could provide for, my family. I wasn't really thinking about pro basketball, but after that junior year, I had such a good year. I kind of got on the radar, and people started contacting me from over in Asia. They found out that I was half Filipino, so I had Asian descent. So different Asian agents, pro agents, started contacting me about possibly playing in the Philippines or over in Asia, and that's where it really got started. I didn't have a lot of options, but that option was on the table. And after my junior year, I knew my senior year I was probably going to have just as good a year, if not better. So I started kind of looking into it of like I could possibly be playing overseas, the first player from Asbury to go overseas. So that was a big draw for me, to try to do something no one had done and no one in my family had ever done.
Talk to me about that atmosphere. Playing over there compared to like playing at Asbury or even PRP, like how is it different?
It's totally different for sure. The two things I loved about playing overseas was, number one, I loved the competition of it. I just loved competing. I loved being able to play in different countries. Because again, that's something I've been doing my whole life for free. In the driveway, so to be able to do it and get paid for it, that was awesome. But number two was to experience the culture. In my 20s, I basically dedicated my entire 20s to playing basketball at a high level, whether it was college or overseas. So I got to travel the world and experience new cultures, and it wasn't like a vacation. I actually got to live there and be immersed in it. And I got to do some things that, the majority of people will never get to do their entire life, and I got to do that as a young man with my wife. So, that was the cool part of it. But, I always tell people, I played in 6 different countries, but the one I focus usually on is the Philippines and Singapore. Basketball is as big, if not bigger, over there than it is here. You're their NBA player. My first pro game in the Philippines in the main league that I had wanted to go to was in front of 55,000 people in a soccer stadium. You know what I mean? Your games are broadcast on ESPN Asia, Fox Sports Asia, and you're like their NBA player. And the passion for the game is just as strong as it is here, but the environment's even crazier. Sometimes it's like a soccer environment. If you ever see those European soccer type crowds, with the energy and excitement. So that was definitely, an adrenaline kick, man. That's something I really enjoyed about playing overseas.
So, once you were done with professional, what made you want to start stuff like Hoops for Christ or even Morrison Basketball Academy?
Yeah, the main thing I focus on now, Turner, is just Hoops for Christ, and it was actually a tough transition because I stopped playing right in the middle of my prime when I was 29, 30. I had honestly. My original plan was to play until like my knees fall off till I was 40. You know what I mean? I wanted to play forever if I could. But, the big thing was when I was at Asbury, I had been praying as a young man that how did I use this college basketball platform to share the gospel? That was always my objective. And it started with my teammates, sharing the gospel with my teammates when I was in college or even overseas. The plane rides, the bus rides, the hotels, before, after practice. You just build those relationships with teammates, and they get to see you. You get to share the gospel. But what I didn't realize, I underestimated, was that when you're a pro athlete or even a college athlete, it carries a lot of weight. People listen to you in a different way that they wouldn't have before. And so I was always looking for those opportunities. I was being proactive about trying to speak through FCA, speak to churches, speak to basketball, other teams, other events. And so it kind of presented itself. But, how I ended up walking away from pro basketball when I felt like I had a lot more to give was I connected with a missionary when I was in the Philippines. His name is Stephen Siebert. He was actually from Jersey, Philadelphia area. And he was over there for 19 years.
Oh, wow.
Just some big white dude walking around in the Philippines. He really stuck out. But somehow the Lord connected us, and he had a ministry called the Salvation Teams. Now, what he would do was exactly what I had been praying about, and I became kind of like the face of his ministry because of it. He would go and he would run free basketball camps in different areas of the Philippines, and some of these areas were like slums, like deep, deep poverty, real poverty. And if you've never seen poverty, especially us being Americans, we live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what real poverty looks like for 70% of the rest of the world. I saw that, and it affects you in a different way when you see babies and children that are filthy dirty. They don't have food to eat. They live in shacks, holes in their clothes, no shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went and did these camps, I would get to share my testimony, run the basketball camp. Man, they had so much joy. They received the instruction with joy. They received my message or my testimony, wholeheartedly. And that really made an impact on me, really changed the course of my life and how I focused. And I realized that basketball was what God had given me, was my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it says in Matthew 5, let your light shine before others, so that when they see your good works, they will give glory to your Father in heaven. Well, God made it really clear to me overseas that my light in this life was basketball, and that would be a way that I could share the gospel. It'd be through the game of basketball. So I kind of took on that whole mindset of being a basketball missionary.
Yep.
Sharing Christ through sports, and that's really how I made that transition when God made it clear to me that this was the next chapter of my life, and that was really the reason why I walked away from playing a little bit earlier than I had wanted to, was to focus on Hoops for Christ and being a full-time basketball trainer and missionary in that way.
Do you have a favorite moment playing basketball? It could have been at any level, really.
Yeah. Oh, man, I got a couple. I got a couple with your dad, too, at Asbury. But I'd say in high school, my favorite moment was when we won the 6th Region Championship my senior year on Louisville Gardens court. Your dad was actually there recruiting me.
Okay.
At that game. He always tells that story.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my favorite moment as far as in high school. In college, I have a lot of them, man. But my favorite moment in a game was we actually went to another college's homecoming. So on homecoming,
okay.
they want to play somebody that they know they can beat.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they paid us. I want to say a couple $1,000 to come up there and get beat. And we drove up there, and it was a packed out crowd. It was at a college called Mount Vernon Nazarene, and that was probably one of my better games. I actually, I want to say I had like 36 or 39, but I hit the game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer in overtime, and we won the game. And that was one of the coolest feelings. But I'd probably say, man, my favorite basketball moment, favorite game. It wasn't my best game of all time, but it's my favorite. Was overseas. My first contract was with a team in Vietnam called the Saigon Heat. They look just like the Miami Heat, but it was Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Same jerseys and everything, right? We were called the Saigon Heat, and I loved it, man. Vietnam was an awesome place. Loved it. It was my wife's favorite country we ever went to. And a few unfortunate things happened, and the coach actually ended up lying to me about a couple things, and I actually got released from that team. That was the first time in my life I ever been cut.
Okay.
So man, that hurt a lot. And I thought, man, everything's over. My career's over. Well, about a few days later, before I flew home, I got picked up by another team in that league called in the same league. So they signed me to be their starting point guard. So within 48 hours, I signed a new contract, flew to a new country, and started playing with this new team. A month later, I came back to Vietnam and played against my old team that had just cut me. So you can imagine how big of a game I wanted to have. Well, anyway, I was actually kind of injured at that time with my ankle and Achilles, but I ended up being able to play because of the adrenaline, and I ended up hitting the game-winning free throw with less than 1 second left to beat my own team. And it was like a total it was like a total moment where God gave you that redemption. That was totally the Lord, just because there was so much swirling and going on around that game outside the lines. So that was probably my favorite moment ever as far as basketball.
Do you have some favorite moments training or like coaching?
Yeah, man. I'll be honest with you. Like when I first came back, it's hard. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes where Solomon talks about, the only satisfaction a man can have in his life is through the work of his own hands, through the sweat of his own brow. And that's what Booster Christ was. When I flew back home in the summer of 2015 in the Philippines, I started from nothing, zero, no gyms, no kids to train, definitely no college or pro players training, from nothing. And a lot of people really, really were pushing me to become a teacher. My degrees in I got a dual degree from Asbury in art and education. And so to become a teacher or join the fire department or work at Ford Motor Company. And, I just wasn't feeling that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's definitely a blessing to do all those things. But for me, I knew I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to be in ministry. So I started it from nothing and built it up. And so anytime I get an opportunity to make an impact on a kid's life, through basketball, or I get to share the gospel, which is what I do every single day. I'm talking to you right now. I'm going to the gym right now to train for the next 6 hours, from little kids on up to a lot of different pro players later on tonight. And so I'm just thankful that I got to do what I love to do. I'm always excited to go to the gym every day and do what I love to do.
Yep. Do you have any favorite players to watch in NBA or even college basketball right now?
I pay more attention to the NBA than college. I like college, but I just love watching the best players in the world. That's why I focus on the NBA. And I'm obviously guard, so I'm a guard-heavy guy. But I watch a lot of film on guys that I can pick things up from. You know what I mean? I'll watch film on anybody, honestly. They don't have to be a big star's name or anything. Yeah. But, lately who I really like watching was like Kemba Walker. Love Dame Lillard. I love watching footwork on older guys, too. It's crazy to see. Obviously, Kobe, Jordan, KG, Tim Duncan, those older guys. Some of my favorite shooters are Glenn Rice. Ray Allen, but of course, your big names I love watching: Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, those guys like that. But I'll watch film on anybody, man. Honestly, that I can learn from.
Yeah. What do you think it takes for an NBA team to be successful for like multiple years? Like, do they have? With guys like Kyrie and James Harden who get like negative feedback, do you think that they can end up winning a championship carrying a team, or no?
I think so, man. Like I said, I never played in the NBA, so I can't speak on that part, but just from interviews and everything of how difficult it is to win in the NBA, I think one very, very underrated aspect is team leadership and chemistry. And that's from your star players to your veteran players that people don't know about that sit on the bench, but they're there to develop a culture, on up to your coaching staff. There's so much drama, so many issues. There's lots of egos that go on at that level. Everybody is great and high level at what they do. So it's about building that chemistry. And then I always put a premium on leadership. You know what I mean? I think Kyrie's got knocked a little bit because of leadership style. He's trying to be forceful. Like Kobe was his mentor. Jordan and Kobe come from that mode of very direct, very alpha mentality, and maybe that's a little tougher coming from Kyrie. I can't really speak on it because I don't know for sure, but that's the perception. You know what I mean? But Kyrie already won a championship with LeBron. Yep. He's in Brooklyn with KD. They have both won championships, so I could easily see them. They pull it together coming out of the East. I like Boston, though, a lot. Honestly, if I had to pick a team that I really, really like, there was not the two LA teams.
Mm-hmm.
I like Boston, even over
Yeah.
Milwaukee. I like Boston as much as
Mm-hmm.
anybody.
So you said that you grew up watching Jordan a little bit, and now LeBron's doing his thing. What do you think about the LeBron-Jordan debate?
I don't even think it's a debate. I don't think it's even close.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jordan is the GOAT. It's not even, to me, it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been the argument. I think the better argument is who's the greatest player versus who's the best player.
Mm-hmm.
Like the greatest player, I think without a doubt is Jordan.
Yeah.
And I think you can make an argument. I just think over time, players are going to get better. Like the average player gets better over time because you build on the last generation and what they've learned. The athleticism is obviously better. You know, the game changes a lot. So I can see that argument of LeBron is the better player. He's the next version of Jordan, like Jordan was the next version of Dr. J or, you know, whatever, Magic Bird. You know, I can see that for sure, but I think the one that gets overlooked, bro, is Kareem.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, if I had to put in order and you were putting LeBron in that debate, I think you would have to go Jordan and Kareem 1-2. And you can't just put LeBron, you know what I mean, above any of them right away. And, you know, the whole championship argument is a thing, too. But I think Jordan is by far the GOAT. Not even close.
Mm-hmm. So you've been training for a while. What do you think are some underrated or even overrated like training habits that trainers have done with a lot of people that you've seen like online and stuff?
Yeah, I think the overrated aspect is because of the rise of Instagram, social media, and you know, like the human aspect is one of the greatest human needs is the need to feel accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of trainers are so desperate to get likes, follows, engagement, comments, views, that they've lost track of like what the essence of being a basketball trainer is, which is being a teacher. You know what I mean? A lot of it is turned into who can make the fanciest move. You know, who can make, you know, it's more entertainment and less teaching and education. And I think that's extremely overrated. Because what you'll find is the guys who have the most followers or tend to be the most popular, whatever they do gets copied on down to everyone else that's trying to move up the food chain. And so what gets lost is trying to become popular, trying to get engagement, instead of really, really offering great value, which is, you know, people want to learn. You know, people want to learn and grow. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm the best or my way is the right way, but, you know, that's something I've tried to stick to is whenever I'm posting something is to post something of value that's going to teach somebody, that's going to inspire somebody or, you know, point them towards Christ or something like that, rather than just trying to be cute and get lots of engagement and stuff like that. I think that's probably the main thing that sticks out to me in today's kind of Instagram trainer world.
Now, I mean, I talked about the overrated. Do you see any, like, underrated things that some trainers are doing, or even, like, what you think is an underrated thing that a trainer can have, like a trait?
I think an underrated thing is to not look at Instagram or social media as your main source of training. And what I mean by that is, you know, a couple years ago, I went all in on social media. I mean, I was going to post every single day. I was going to treat it like my job because I realized that my biggest reach and potential was through social media because that's just the world we live in. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like that 10, 15 years ago. Well, maybe about more like 15 years ago, it wasn't really like that. But now everybody's on some platform of social media. So I think if you focus on putting out great content every day consistently and don't worry about, like, does it have to look like a movie production, you know, like it has to be perfect, but, you know, you're posting good stuff. It could just be with your phone, you post a good drill, you know, that might really help somebody. Like you pull your phone out and you share a great message from the heart that's going to help other people. You know, it might not get the most views or likes or whatever, but it's gonna, if it really impacts somebody, man, it was worth doing. You know what I mean? I think that's the most underrated aspect of it.
Yeah. Do you want to see any changes to any level of basketball? Like it could be high school, college, even professional?
I'd love to see a shot clock in high school.
Yeah.
I hate that I see these videos of like high school teams holding the ball the entire quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you got to get rid of that ASAP.
Yeah.
The other side is there's no universal. I think Europe club systems do a little better at this. There's no universal way of developing players, meaning the size of the ball differs, the height of the rim differs. You know, you might play in one league as a kid and you're playing on 8 foot, and then the other league you're playing on 10 foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think more consistently in how we develop players.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would help a lot. I don't know who would be the governing board, but I think that would help a lot when it comes to helping players when they first get introduced to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main things.
So you've seen basketball develop a lot. Do you see like the use for a true big man, or do you, see that a big guy can turn into like a stretch big? Because that's what bigs are used for nowadays.
Yeah, like I said, the game evolves in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely leaning more towards small ball, a stretch four rather than your traditional post. But I do think there's value, because sometimes we only look at the highest level. We say the NBA, like, oh, there's no Shaqs in the NBA nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean if you got a kid who's in high school and he's 6'8", 270 pounds, big kid, you're not going to make that kid a stretch four necessarily, man. But nobody can stop them down on the block because they're massive. You know, so it doesn't mean they have to change who they are. I think there's a role and a place for everyone, you know, in the game. But the game has definitely evolved more into small ball, positionless basketball, being able to play on the perimeter and handle the ball if you're big. So if I'm developing a young player, I'm not going to be like, you should just sit on the block because you're big. I'm going to try to give you guard skills as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is like the closing segment. I usually have this with everybody. If you want to just talk about whatever or like just preach something for a second, you can do that right now.
Okay.
Do you have? Yeah.
I think the main thing that I would close with is what I would say whenever I'm speaking to a group with Hoops for Christ, and that's the main thing is figure out, you know, if you want to become successful in anything in life, you've got to look at it from the aspect of becoming a specialist. Meaning, you know, good is the enemy of great. Nobody in life cares about what you're good at. They will only pay attention to what you're great at. There's a million other people that are good at a lot of things. But for you to really stand out, to get opportunities, whether that's you want to make your school team, you want to get a scholarship, you want to become professional, or you want to make a career out of something you enjoy, well, you better be really, really special. You better be in the top, 5 to 10% at the very least, and trying to push towards being the top 1%. So I'd say it's find out what you're passionate about, because you're only going to work hard at things you love. So find something you love, and then dedicate yourself to that craft, whatever that might be. It could be a sport, could be an instrument, could be a talent or art, or whatever it might be. And if you feel like God's really called you to do that and gifted you to do that, you're really going to have to dedicate your life to becoming great at that specific thing. You're not going to be able to dabble or be lazy and do a bunch of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get that down, then it comes back to that verse I said from Matthew 5. You know, let your light shine before others so that when they see your good work, they will give glory to your Father in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Your light, in this life, the light that God has given you is usually your gifts, talents, and opportunities. So find out what am I gifted at? What has God given me a gift to do, a talent to do? What doors does He open for opportunity? And then use that in a way that helps others and points others to Christ. And if you stay on that course, you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I had a good time talking to you, and have a good time training today. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on.
Well, do Turner, man. I'm looking forward to this podcast, dude. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you later. I'll see you.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for the podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.